Legalization. I'm Brad Pomerance in Long Beach. Today we're at the Long Beach Chamber of Commerce. They've invited us in to tape in their offices. We're joined today by Charlie Parkin. He is the elected city attorney for the city of Long Beach. In Long Beach, you have an elected city prosecutor, which deals with crimes,
yes.
Elected city attorney, which deals with civil matters, and I guess marijuana is a civil matter now.
It is. It is a civil matter. Yes.
California overwhelmingly passed Prop 64, legalizing marijuana. It really wasn't very close. 57-43. Every coastal county passed it. Every Southern California county on the coast passed it. What do you make of it?
It's going to be a big change for Long Beach and the coastal cities.
Sure.
I think they have some big decisions to look at in this next year because under the state Prop 64, the state won't begin issuing license until January of 2018.
But what's interesting is the day after the election, marijuana became legal.
Yes.
So your counterpart, Mr. Halbert, was not arresting people anymore. I mean, marijuana had all but been decriminalized.
Yes.
But this is a sea change.
It is a sea change for our police department and our prosecutor immediately. You're right, that the possession of a certain quantity is now legal, and so that is a change, and it helps with our resources in some regards.
Arguably.
Yes.
I want to ask you, as kind of a student of politics, having been elected for a while, or at least in elective office, you know, there was a measure on the ballot in 2010, Prop 19, and that sought to legalize marijuana. That went down by about 47-53. It even lost in LA County. 6 years later, it gained 10 points. What happened in 6 years?
You know, I think there's been a lot of discussion in the public about marijuana,
Right.
and I think there's been in other states where they have decided to experiment with legalizing marijuana, and I think that has something to do with it. I think maybe the economy and the market on marijuana has changed too.
And what's amazing to me is that I believe marijuana was on the ballot in some form in November in 9 other states, either complete legalization or medical. Red states, blue states, purple states, passed everywhere.
Yes.
I mean, you put it on the ballot, it passes almost invariably. I think Ohio went down a couple of years ago, but there were some inside reasons why it went down.
Yeah, I think now there's 30 states that have some sort of legalized either medical or recreational or both. And so it is going to make a big change in how the federal government deals with it too.
Let's talk about Long Beach specifically. Second largest city in the county, 7th largest in the state. I mean, what you do matters. There were 2 local measures on the ballot in November dealing with marijuana, MA and MM. I think it's interesting to talk about those two.
Yes.
Tell us what MA was.
MA was a measure that the Long Beach City Council put on the ballot to tax marijuana if it was to be passed, both on the Prop 64 and the recreational side,
Right.
and the medical marijuana.
Okay, so it was a tax completely, assuming 64 passes.
Correct, and it was in response
Yes,
to
please.
the MM, which is the
MM.
voter initiative to which repealed the City of Long Beach ban on medical marijuana.
Which had gone through litigation, and there was a lot of permutations.
And we're still in litigation on some of that.
Okay.
It goes on and on. But yes, you're absolutely correct. It was a voter initiative to repeal our ban and to allow for the regulation of medical marijuana, in addition to allowing for cultivation, dispensaries, manufacturing, edibles, etc.
But there was also a tax element there.
Yes, there was.
And their tax was less than the MA tax.
That is correct.
And was their tax for all marijuana or just medical?
Both.
So what happens, because both pass, that's the punchline. MA passes with 68%. That's the city measure that had a higher tax. MM passes, but with 60% with a lower tax. So what happens?
So that's an interesting one. Usually winner takes all.
Right.
And so in this case, under the election code, if both measures pass, those areas where it conflicts, the one with the more votes is the one that is deemed to be implemented.
So in this instance, the higher tax prevails.
That is correct.
Let's talk about that, though, because you can only tax a product if it's for sale. And Long Beach does have the ability to decide whether to allow the sale of marijuana. I guess with MM passing, at least the portion that dealt with reversing the ban, there are going to be dispensaries, at least on the medical side. That's now law.
That is correct. We are going to be issuing permits to allow up to 32 dispensaries in the city of Long Beach, and the tax that passed will be on their gross receipts.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's not a sales tax on to the consumer per se, it's on the gross receipts of the dispensary.
Now that's interesting because under 64, the local jurisdictions have the ability to tax as they so desire. But 64 did have its own tax. And there are concerns that you have the state tax and then you layer on the local taxes, that it could get to a point where the taxes are so great that even though it's a legal product, the black market becomes more economic.
And that's a great point, and a lot of people have brought that up because there is the state tax, there is a county tax in Los Angeles, and Long Beach has a local tax. Some are anticipating that that will be a problem. That remains to be seen, but I think that's true with any kind of taxation as we've seen in history.
So let's talk about commercial establishments, because as you said, those cannot be opened until 2018 under 64. This is not a Long Beach issue. How does Long Beach decide whether to allow a commercial dispensary to open?
For the purposes of selling it on a recreational or a non-medical basis, you're right. The cities have to make a decision, a conscious decision on whether they want to, because under Prop 64, it allows local jurisdictions to ban recreational marijuana.
And as you probably remember, the city of Riverside took a case to the California Supreme Court, which basically said it's a land use decision.
Correct.
And so technically, can't cities ban alcohol sales? I mean, I think technically they could.
I'm not sure we could under the ABC. They have the jurisdiction and state jurisdiction. Right.
It's complicated. I don't want to get to it. But the bottom line is, there's no question that a city can decide no marijuana sales.
That's correct. And under 64, if a city decides that, there's certain funding that cities could apply for if they allow recreational and regulate. But if they don't, then they wouldn't be eligible for some of those funds from the taxing of recreational marijuana.
But do the voters need to decide whether to allow recreational sales?
This could be a council decision.
Really?
Yes.
And so, look, it's early.
Right.
But do we have a sense as to where the council's going?
Well, it is early, and I think the advantage that Long Beach will have is with the medical marijuana ordinance passed, in the next 4 to 6 months, we'll start to see how that's working.
Now, let's presume, well, we know medical dispensaries are going to open. Recreational, we don't know, but that's going to fall under you.
Yes.
Because it's civil.
Yes.
It's not a criminal matter anymore.
No.
You're busy.
We're going to be very busy.
So what does that mean?
It means we've talked to council about that and about the resources we'll need to monitor that. Not so much the regulatory of the legal dispensaries that have followed the rules, that have agreed to the regulation and are following it, but the illegal dispensaries. I think we look at Los Angeles as an example.
So if they're illegal, do you then bring in your city prosecutor, or does it still land to you?
It generally lands to us on land use and to shut down the illegal, we'll call them illegal medical marijuana dispensaries that will open. But they don't have a business license, they don't have a permit, they may not have the right inspections. Right, it's going to be an administrative fine.
I mean, who would have thunk?
Oh, yeah.
Who would have thunk even 5 years ago that this is where we'd be? I want to thank you for joining us. You'll be back. We'll talk more about marijuana, outside counsel, which is in the news as well. His name is Charlie Parkin. He is the elected city attorney in the city of Long Beach, second largest city in LA County, 7th in the state. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Local Edition.